People are like houses with vast rooms and tiny windows, and maybe that's a good thing, the way we never stop surprising each other. The other day, a young woman, Sophia, posted a picture of her bookshelves online. She made a whole wall of floating bookshelves with some of her favorites, and in my opinion, it looks amazing. She's a successful writer herself who writes both young adult and adult books. There are many people in the comments hating on her and shaming her for her taste in books, because many of the books on her shelves were young adult books. This led to me wanting to make a video talking about why YA matters. Young adult is one of the most popular and successful categories of publishing. It is a particularly loved genre on BookTube as well. What is young adult? It is a genre of fiction written for readers from 12 to 18 years of age and typically follows a character who is considered a young adult. While this is the target demographic, about half of the people reading these books are adults. Now, why is that? Many of the ideas and themes expressed in young adult novels are prevalent throughout a person's life. Your teenage years are influential moments of change that will usually stick in your mind, so it's a good place to start in order for people to relate to a story. There are a few themes I wanted to specifically highlight in order to emphasize how they are shown in popular young adult novels. But even if we don't have the power to choose where we come from, we can still choose where we go from there. Coming of age is the most typical theme when thinking about young adult books. The very time period the book is set and those in the target demographic is a time of great change. The shift from childhood to adolescence to adulthood is a hard one as people figure out their place in the world and what they believe. It is when people start to gain some control over their life, so it can change how a person grows up. This transition is extremely well highlighted in many young adult books like The Perks of Being a Wallflower, The Outsiders, and Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda. All of these depict protagonists figuring out who they are and how they want to display themselves to the world. Things were rough all over, but it was better that way. That way, you could tell the other guy was human too. Along with this, the theme of self-discovery is important because being a teenager is when you start to explore who you really are. Books like Anna and the French Kiss, Geekerella, and Dumplin' do a good job exploring what it means to figure out what your personality really is. I think you gotta be who you want to be until you feel like you are whoever it is you're trying to become. Sometimes half of doing something is pretending you can. A topic many tend to brush over is the idea of death and loss. That's the thing about pain, it demands to be felt. Many young adult books deal with this darker theme and how it can impact a person's life. They Both Die at the End, The Fault in Our Stars, and The Book Thief are all wonderful examples of how an author can dive into this topic in a meaningful way. You may be born into a family, but you walk into friendships. Some you'll discover you should put behind you. Others are worth every risk. Turning onto a lighter note, romance is also huge within the young adult genre. This is a time in the reader's life where they are starting to see other people in romantic lights and begin to have emotional feelings for them. People start to get into relationships, but they're generally very new as people experience their firsts. Books like To All the Boys I've Loved Before, Fangirl, and Final Draft touch on the highs and lows of first loves. You don't get to choose if you get hurt in this world, but you do have some say in who hurts you. Getting back on a more serious note, many young adult books can deal with the darker part of society. Things like racism, suicide, rape, and more can be found in books. Books like The Hate U Give, All American Boys, The Mockingbirds, and All the Bright Places are just a few examples of good representation. Sometimes, when people get treated as less than human, the best way to help them feel better is to simply treat them as human. Not as victims, just you as you. Obviously, there are many themes that can be picked out of YA books, and many books can have several of these themes within them, and these are just a handful. But that's not the only reason to read YA. Many people pick up these books in order to escape their normal everyday lives. They want to be whisked off into their imagination, and that is totally okay. Escapism is a fantastic way to get lost in a story when the world can become too much. Books like Harry Potter and Percy Jackson and The Heroes of Olympus and The Mortal Instruments follow a cast of characters as they grow over many years. It shows how they form bonds with each other and continue to grow as people. They allow people to imagine alternate worlds where wizards and demigods and shadowhunters are real. It does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live. Even the much-hated Twilight does a good job allowing the readers to escape the real world and imagine themselves in love with a vampire or werewolf, no matter how cringy it may seem to some people. It gets the job done, and millions of people loved reading it. Just because we've been dealt a certain hand, it doesn't mean we can't choose to rise above, to conquer the boundaries of a destiny that none of us wanted. Books like The Hunger Games, Divergent, and The Maze Runner came out in a huge boom in young adult books during the craze for dystopian books. Some walks you have to take alone. I'm not saying that all of these books are works of art, but they do a fantastic job telling a story and allowing a reader to become immersed in another world. They make people feel like they are less alone. Many people have made friends and formed communities around young adult books and books in general. I can tell you that the end of a life is the sum of the love that was lived in it. That whatever you think you have sworn, being here at the end of his life is not what is important. It was being here for every other moment. Young adult is also a category that many female authors and readers have found a lot of success and love in. Typically, women are judged more harshly than men, so I think this idea transferred over to the genre, even though this doesn't always apply. There are quite a few people online who love to hate on YA. They say people should be reading more classics. They ask why people aren't reading more adult books. Generally, they just love to hate on YA fiction as if it's all trash. This is a horrible mindset to have because by looking down on YA, you're looking down on those who read it as if they are less than. People love to degrade things because the younger generation is doing them, which is completely unfair, as it happens time and time again. Each generation has their own way of dealing with things. Doing something like loving young adult novels instead of reading classics should not be shamed. Millennials and Gen Z are more well-read than the generations that came before them, and read more books on average per year. This love of reading is starting young, and it is helped by having books that suit their demographic and truly represent what people may be going through. And isn't it better for everyone to just love reading? It is also popular to hate on things that are popular, which means hating that people who have outgrown the demographic continue to enjoy reading content from that range. However, I'd like to formally disagree and say that many of the themes hold true no matter what point of life you're at. It's not as much a lack of growing up, but more a reminiscing over past times in your life, while also being able to escape this world. Young adult novels also tend to tackle the heightened emotions of adolescence, and are more focused on an emotional arc, while many adult books don't spend as much time diving into that aspect of their characters. If my life is going to mean anything, then I have to live it myself. Anyhow, young adult books are fun, and people who read them should be able to have a great time because those books provide value to the world. Read what you want and enjoy it. If you love classics, adult books, children's books, young adult books, whatever you want, just read and have fun. Please like this video if you agree that young adult books have value, comment your favorite young adult books, and subscribe for more fun content, and a lot revolving around young adult books even though I'm 20. Thanks for watching. Bye!